Thank you all for joining us. We have a very interesting webinar tonight with two great architects discussing renovation to an apartment we have in the South Street Seaport, that's Shep Skiff's listing. Also, this Sundays at 10, we will be meeting with three good attorneys that will sort of describe some things you have to be more aware of because of COVID. And that will be with Rashida Siddiqui, Chris Mao, and Susan Groberg. So that's Sunday at 10 o'clock. But we're very excited about tonight's program because
sorry, my bad. Go ahead, keep going.
We're very excited about tonight's program because a lot of people seem to be frightened about renovation, and you know, it's understandable. It is a lot of work. On the other hand, it allows you to create a space that's your own, and if you work with good architects and contractors, you know, we have certainly over the years had many buyers who have had very good experiences. So if anything, hopefully this will demystify what you can do. And I think there's a lot to be said for creating your own space. So on that note, I will hand it over to Shep, and he will describe the apartment and work with the architects, and they will give us very good advice, I'm sure. So Shep, it's all yours.
Great, thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Hello to everyone out there. On Paul's good recommendation, I was introduced to Joe McGuier and Megan, who are co-founders or co-principals, excuse me, at JAM Architecture, which is a Brooklyn-based architecture and design firm. They specialize in, their offices are located in downtown Brooklyn, and they specialize in townhouse and apartment renovations and restorations. They have a combined experience of 25 years. They have a spectacular team behind them, and they are a full-service firm that offer a comprehensive scope of services from schematic design through construction administration in New York City, the Hudson Valley, and Long Island. They believe that they're very much so in line with the values of our team, which is a kind of a down-home, wholesome, leading with kindness, but also being very professional. They have exceptional technical expertise, clear communication, and as they say on their site, a dose of humility. So without further ado, I will let Joe and Megan kind of so as Scott mentioned, we have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, approximately 1,100 square foot co-op in the Seaport District, in the Southbridge Towers. It's kind of the perfect space for, I mean, it's a space, and what we'll do is Paul will navigate us through. Paul took a 360 tour in the space, which will help you to see the abysmal shape that it's in right now. And Megan and Joe will guide us through 2 different tiers of renovations. One being a very basic, clearly the kitchen definitely needs to be redone top to bottom, whether it's a high-end renovation or a lower tier renovation. But they will walk us through 2 different tiers of renovations that will help to give a brand new buyer or someone that's done renovations before a sense for what's possible in the space. As Scott mentioned, we definitely feel that somehow in this, I've been in the real estate business now for 13 years, and somehow within the last 5 years or so, I would say, buyers, the average first-time buyer is, for some reason, you know, and I'm not trying to stereotype the millennial generation, but I would say that people's vision for when they walk into a space seems a little bit less than it once was. People are extremely fearful or cautious. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but in terms of envisioning what a space can be. I've just been showing this apartment for the past couple of weeks. It's brand new to market, and it's amazing. I say that because we've shown it a ton since being able to show again, and folks, generally speaking, don't have the vision of what's possible. They kind of, gasp when they walk in the door. So I'll stop here and pass the mic on to Paul and to Joe and Megan.
Great. So let's here we can get started. We're also live on Facebook. If everybody has any questions, you can post questions there. So I'm going to spotlight these guys, and we're going to bring up the 360 video, and then let's talk through it.
Great.
Let's see. All right.
And I'm going to let Megan lead for our end. She's the smart one.
I think we're as much of a team as anybody, but so to start off, this is a very classic post-war apartment. It's what most people would consider a state condition, which as Shep said, may scare off some first-time home buyers. To us, though, it could be a very straightforward, simple, easy cosmetic makeover, or it could be a much more intense, full gut, major makeover, fully customized to your needs. It's really up to the buyer. But then again, it also comes back to what the buyer's vision is for the apartment. And, that's one of our major roles, is to kind of help people understand what the possibilities are, help them, see the vision, create the space that they want. Even with the quicker spruce up, it's still an easy, good way to put your own imprint on the space and really make it your own, even with paint colors and floor finishing.
And for, some context, I mean, this is actually, even though it isn't a state condition, I would say it's actually in pretty good condition, meaning a lot of the work that you would do is on some level elective. You've got to do a certain amount of work, but we see way worse all the time.
Definitely. I mean, and honestly, the apartment has a great layout to begin with. So you're not really, looking at this in a major way where you have to demo a lot of walls and reconfigure to get modern livable spaces. As it is, the apartment's got a really great open living, dining, kitchen zone, which is what everybody already wants. So you're like 90% of the way there. You're, in the quick makeover version, you are new cabinets, new counters, new appliances, new light fixtures.
Should I go over to the kitchen?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's go to the kitchen.
A lot of people might think they want to open up the wall between the kitchen and the living room, which, in some apartments, you really need that to get a better sense of connectivity. But I would actually say that in this apartment, it feels open enough to me already. And having the wall on the living room side makes the living room very furnishable, for modern day life with a TV.
Totally.
So to me, it's not something that needs to go to improve the space. And in fact, for me, it's a huge opportunity in the kitchen to pick up a large amount of storage. There's no wall cabinets over the range right now. That's an easy way to max out storage. And then in terms of the layout of the kitchen, it's actually also very functional. It's a good work triangle. The spacing looks generous. It's an easy way to get, a full height pantry out of cabinetry next to a new refrigerator. And I think someone could be very happy with a quick refresh, just aesthetically with the exact kitchen layout that's there.
That's right. Yep.
Paul, maybe you could look, do you have the 3 inspiration images of the kitchen handy?
Give me a moment. I will have to pull them
We can
up.
come back to that. But this is a great way to kind of think about, your personal style, or if it's for resale, what would be, appealing to the masses. But, depending on how long you think you would stay in the apartment, it could be an area where you want to really customize it and do something that suits your style, your personality. But as soon as,
Yeah, here, let me share it. I've
okay.
got it now.
And even within the kitchen, across a range of styles, we can approach, often a major cost component is the cabinets themselves, but we routinely build them custom with a millworker, but also we often use IKEA cabinet boxes with custom fronts, and it's a beautiful result, which is a huge save on the budget.
I've heard that a lot, that using IKEA for the bones of the shelves is a really great way to save expenses. I mean, is there any drawback?
You're a little bit limited on, because they only make certain size boxes. Sometimes you'll give away a little space. Things don't fit perfectly, but we rarely, run into what we would consider a major concession for that.
And there's so many companies these days capitalizing on the fact that there is a huge market for that, for people using the boxes, but wanting to get more personality out of the doors and the drawer fronts. So there's a really huge variety out there right now that can achieve any number of looks. The images that we have here, they're obviously 3 completely different design directions, but they're all galley kitchens with a seating area kind of at the end, just like this apartment is set up. And I think even when you're looking at inspiration images, you kind of want to look at images that are similar to the layout of the space that you're working with, because it really will help you think through kind of how you want the space to look and feel, because really the sky's the limit here.
And all 3 of these styles, I think, would be appropriate in the apartment.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. So just out of curiosity, if you were to do sort of the most cost-effective renovation, what are you looking at? As a ballpark figure?
I think, Paul, do you have the 2 options, the plan options handy? So the one on the left, Megan, go ahead and walk through that.
Yeah, so the quick refresh is a fresh coat of paint, refinishing the existing wood floors, replace light fixtures in their existing locations, potentially replacing some of the closet door hardware. You pretty much need to redo all the kitchen cabinets, the counters, and the appliances. And then, you could also, the bathroom in this apartment looks like it's already been freshened once, which is a good thing, but you could, refresh that more with a new vanity cabinet.
Yeah.
But I think that would be a really nice, easy, cosmetic makeover, low intensity on the budget front.
And that would probably be, it all depends on finishes, but somewhere around 100 to 125,000.
For the entire renovation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. The kitchen there is the majority of that number.
Right.
Right.
But the bathroom is, it's not,
It's not unworkable.
Right.
I mean,
right.
It's white tile. It's a black and white floor. Couldn't be more classic to New York.
Right.
It's obviously lacking on storage, but that's where, an easy, simple vanity replacement comes in, very easily.
And then if you were to add gutting the bathroom, that's assuming nice but reasonable finishes. It's probably between 30 and 40,000.
Right.
One thing that I would mention too, which I'll let you walk through too, is the closet space in the apartment is quite generous. There's a whole, in both bedrooms there are and I'll let you talk through the bedroom renovation. I like what you did, what I saw in the major makeover. I love what I saw in the creation of pushing out that closet in the master bedroom, and then also reworking. You know, clearly you would want to do custom closets throughout. You know, in the living room closet too, and in both bedrooms. But anyway, that was just one comment.
Yeah, what I saw here, you know, the only thing with the existing plan that I felt, you know, could be improved upon was the proportions of the bedroom that would most likely be the master.
Yeah.
And that's just because it looks like someone has, you know, at some point in time added closets along the wall between the two bedrooms.
Right.
And it's really shortened the proportion of the room. So moving that amount of closet space into the, you know, bottom half of the room, it really improves the overall shape of a bedroom and gives you a very furnishable layout for, you know, a classic, you know, bedroom with you know, queen or king bed, 2 nightstands, and then a dresser opposite it with, you know, some people put a TV over it, but it's the proportion with moving that closet space down to the shorter end of the room. It really just, I think, gives you a much better furnishable space while still giving you a ton of closet.
Yeah, totally. Can I ask a question about flooring in terms of, from a price standpoint? You know, you mentioned that in the basic renovation, it's a refinish, you know, sanding and restaining versus installing brand new wood floors. And clearly I know, excuse me, I know that like a kitchen, like renovating anything, there's a big range for the types of flooring, the types of cut that you put in, and you know, and then also I know that you mentioned subflooring, whether the subflooring needs to be replaced as well. If you could just kind of talk through a bit about the cost difference, that would be helpful, I think.
Yeah, so these apartments, it's, you know, very traditional that they have a parquet floor. To sand them and stain them, we've seen pricing, you know, around $6 a square foot. It's a little bit more to refinish a parquet floor because it has to sometimes be done by hand. But that would be a reasonable cost. Going up the ladder in terms of pricing from there, you know, a new white oak strip floor at $2.25 would be your next kind of most economical floor to install. But a lot of people these days like a wider plank floor, or, you know, a herringbone pattern as opposed to the parquet. Like you start escalating just your material cost quite a bit, and then, you know, if there is a pattern, your labor cost is also going to go up. But one thing that, you know, in all of these multifamily buildings where there's a lot of apartment units on top of each other, to just be aware of is that some buildings have a requirement for soundproofing to be installed under new flooring. So that just has a you know, a price associated with it and a thickness that, you know, sometimes requires you to remove the existing floor in order to, you know, do a proper soundproofing layer and then subfloor and then a new floor. So sometimes there's limitations in the space at the entry door to the apartment that can really kind of dictate which route you go with the flooring. So it's just some things to be aware of.
So it could take, even with a reasonable, you know, material cost, it could take, with soundproofing, it could be $20 plus a square foot.
Oh, wow.
$20 a square foot. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Because I hear it's good for brokers. I don't know how many brokers are on this call too, but
Got a couple in here.
as you can imagine, I mean, we as brokers throw around all different numbers for what floor, you know, costs are for anything, and I like anything, it's such a huge range. So
It is a big range, and the decision when you're renovating in an apartment, there's a bucket of decisions that you're in control of, which are finishes and how much work you do. But then when you're working in an apartment building in the city, there's a whole bucket of decisions that are made for you. They're the building requirements. So one of those would be the soundproofing. there's lots of plumbing requirements when you do kitchens and bathrooms, and that can represent a large portion of your overall renovation budget.
Right, and also upgrading the electrical. I always hear different price estimates for that, and that can also. I'd be curious if you feel comfortable talking about that too. Like what tends to be the average on that?
That's harder to pin
That's
down.
way harder to pin down because it's so building specific, and it depends on what the building has in the basement's electrical room and how someone would bring the physical cable up to the unit and how far the unit is from that room. So I've seen it, as expensive as, at a metric of like $10,000 a floor you're bringing up electric. I've also seen it done for $10,000
Total, right.
total. It's 100% dependent on the building and what is already there.
There's sort of two components to the electrical upgrade. There's if you need to bring up more power into the apartment, and that's what Megan was just talking about. But also, on some level, you're going to have to address the existing electric inside the apartment, even if you don't bring up more power. For example, you almost always have to replace the electrical panel when you're doing even a modest amount of work like the kitchen. So there's some cost baked in there as well.
Uh-huh. So the higher the floor, the more expensive it is.
Definitely.
Sometimes,
Uh-huh.
but I've seen a lot of these post-war buildings have electric meter rooms every 10 floors.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes you're just going down a few floors or up a few floors and not all the way to the basement.
Cool. Thank you. That's helpful.
How much do you think? I mean, amperage. Let's just say this is a really old apartment. And we needed to add power. How much power do you think an apartment this size ought to have?
Probably 100 amps.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're dealing with this all the time where, a normal part of the process for us, and it almost all buildings require it, is we bring an electrician in and they'll generate what's called an electrical load letter based on how big the apartment is and how many appliances you'll have. And then you check that against the available power. And so you quickly find out whether you have enough or not.
What would be your guess for what 66 Frankfort 3H has? What would be your guess if you had to guess?
Probably 40 or 60 amps.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Okay.
And the 100 is kind of ideal. Like you end up sort of tailoring the work to what you have. And, we often see 60 and 70 amps as workable. You just can't load up with electric appliances.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I've actually done a few apartments where we've made a decision to put in that where we couldn't bring up more power, where we've put in a switch that will toggle between like an electric dryer and an air conditioning unit.
Oh.
It's a
That's
very
so clever.
it's a workaround when there's absolutely nothing to be done.
Right.
And so that's life in New York City. You can run the dryer, but not the air conditioning.
Right. Paul, that looks a lot like you in the video.
It is me.
Oh, I knew it. Oh, I knew it.
Yes.
There we go.
pretty freaky to see yourself on.
Before you're
Yeah, I forgot those closets are really good size, which in New York, obviously.
Here's where they picture putting a walk-in closet. I mean, this is a huge room. And yeah, it absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Shep has also commented, really in terms of a 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. I mean, this is a really good price point. I mean, I don't think there's anything else on the market at this price point, understanding it needs a fair amount of work, but still, it would be a very wise investment for a buyer as long as they're just not frightened of doing the work.
If someone was going through this, and we were just talking about floors, looking through these sorts of floors, can these be just salvaged and kept? I mean,
Most of the time, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not easy to tell from the video, but what you look for is how many times it's already been sanded. So
right.
in person, you can usually tell pretty quickly.
Yeah, right.
One thing that I noticed is there is a discrepancy between if you go the parquet in the master bedroom versus what's in the hallway is a little bit different. So
Oh, yeah?
not that, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think with, as you know, with a new coat of darker stain, sand and stain, you don't even really notice.
No.
A lot of times we do advise people when they're going to keep a parquet floor, but they don't love the look of a parquet floor, that if you do go darker, it does a lot to camouflage it.
It really does.
And most likely you're going to put an area rug on top of it anyway. So it kind of goes away.
I guess
That's a nice trick.
one thing that comes to mind, aside from how ugly that color blue is in that bedroom,
Really, Shep? I was thinking maybe someone would keep it. Oh, that was a bad joke. Go ahead.
is a very common question that comes up is how much does it cost roughly to replace a through-the-wall air conditioning unit? And again, really it depends on the make, but what do you guys have a sense for that?
We do this all the time. I just got pricing for 2 units. I think they were about $2,000 a piece.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. If you have to replace the sleeve that's in the wall, that's substantially more expensive. But that's only the case if it's completely rusted out.
Right. I tend to quote, as the broker, I tend to quote around anywhere between 2,500 and 5,000.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely fair. Which would include what I just said was just the unit itself, but the install and the labor to get the old one out. So it's in that range.
Yeah, and this may be more of an interior designer question, but is there anything that you think could be creative to do? Well, I guess it's not. It's more in your range. Is hiding or building something out over the heating and the air conditioning?
Definitely. If this were going to be more of a major makeover or something that you just even wanted to clean up one of these rooms with, we would definitely suggest a line of built-in millwork to cover the HVAC and to pick up additional storage.
Right.
Yeah, it really does go a long way to clean up the aesthetic of a room.
You have that.
In my sketch, yeah, that's kind of, it's a nondescript line under the windows, but that's what, we would suggest.
In fact, I thought, just thinking out loud now, I thought it might be kind of neat to do a banquette in the living room that maybe the air conditioning unit and functions as storage and then goes into the corner, a nice built-in seat that runs down.
Oh, that would be really nice.
Yeah, you could definitely do that.
Yep.
What about these
Are
popcorn
there any questions on Facebook?
No, we've got a few people watching, but no questions.
Okay.
What about these popcorn ceilings? Are those difficult to deal with? Are they easy?
I've actually taken them down myself. That was kind of a traumatizing experience. But people that know what they're doing, it's not that hard.
What happened? Were you attacked by the popcorn?
Yeah, it was like everywhere for weeks.
I hope you were wearing a mask.
Popcorn.
I was like 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I honestly haven't ever taken one off.
I would think most contractors would say they would laminate it with a 1/4-inch piece of sheetrock.
Yes.
Give it a clean surface.
Yeah.
You lose like a slight bit of height, but that would probably be the most economical way to
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've heard that before, and that seems to be what a lot of people do, because I know it is very labor intensive to get up there and remove it. And right, you'd lose very little ceiling height, but it's a much quicker, easier fix.
And then when popcorn is back, you can just take
it down.
Yeah, right. And when that'll be when I don't know when ever.
Next
Only when parquet is back.
The 80s are
Right.
back now, so.
Right.
Yeah, I guess you never know. And maybe drop ceilings will come back also, but I don't know.
You guys like having this here, like we have in the
Give you
virtual
what we'll
staging.
furnish with, yeah, because
If
that's
somebody really wanted to get rid of that, what would be involved? Let's say someone was like, yeah, but I don't watch TV and I just want to have it open.
the first thing that, as an architect, I would say would be to ask the building super if he knows where the gas riser is, because that's the wall that has the range on it, on the kitchen.
Yeah.
So depending on where that pipe is, will tell you a lot about whether or not opening up that wall would make sense.
Yeah.
You could get lucky and that pipe could be all the way off to the side where the intercom is. Or,
Right.
or you could be in the position where it's right behind the range, right in the middle of the wall. And then,
Yeah.
taking that wall down probably makes,
Because you
makes more
can't
sense.
move that riser.
Right, you can't move it. Right.
Um,
Does the width of risers vary from building to building and apartment to apartment?
I would say it varies more between like a pre-war apartment and a post-war apartment. And that's, in a pre-war, every unit usually has its own gas riser. So if the building is 12 stories, you've got 12 pipes in the wall.
if you're on the first floor.
Right. And then one pipe drops off every floor.
Yeah.
In a post-war, like this apartment, there's probably one master gas meter in the basement and one pipe that feeds all of the apartments.
Yeah.
And, then there's just a valve inside of each apartment. So that pipe's usually like 2 inches, 2.5
Yeah.
inches in diameter.
It's not huge, but it requires, you end up with a column if you open it up and it's now an island, you end up with this column in the middle, which we do all the time, but
Yeah.
this is such a small wall that depending on where that pipe is, it may not make sense.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right. Okay.
Great.
I love the vintage tile though. Maybe you keep it.
It's pretty cool. I
You
would-
think?
So
You think?
I mean, hey,
you can't buy that.
you can't buy
yeah.
Color
I hear you.
other than that brown, I would agree. I don't know. It's not the best.
I don't know. I would mix it in maybe take those off, make something out of it, mix it in with some colors. It could be cool. I mean, just saving some of those tiles.
Yeah. Yeah, I would take it down, but everyone has a different opinion here. Yeah, I think, in this case, having the kitchen separated, because the apartment has a pretty open layout. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think, it gives you, it's not like you feel confined in that kitchen at all.
No,
No, it's already very open to the dining area
wider
and
than-
back to the living and entry.
it's a lot wider of a galley kitchen than your average. It really
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, then, the wall gives you, you finish eating dinner and then you can pile all the dirty dishes in the sink and then ignore them in the living room and not see them.
Yes.
That's
That
critical.
is that's a big positive, I think.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Thank you.
Remind me, Shep, is there currently a dishwasher installed already?
There is not, Scott. There is not. So no.
But the building allows them, correct?
Of course, yes.
It looks like there's a space for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Paul, do we have any questions?
Not seeing any questions in the Facebook, but my kids do want to show the grasshopper that they caught.
Oh, let's do that.
Yeah, there's a ladybug too. It's
Can we see it? Oh, nice.
Wow.
That's big.
That's
so
amazing.
they are satisfied now. There you go. Is this a pet-friendly building, Shep?
It is a pet-friendly building, yes.
Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah. It's actually architecturally, you could clearly not the epitome of the best architecture of all time, but I would say that that it's a bit like Stuytown in that it has a bit of like a campus kind of built within
Yes.
the buildings, and there's a lot of walkable area, a, a bit of green area. You know, it's really well situated, actually. You know, it's literally a half a block to the seaport, which is one of my favorite parts of the city. It's a neighborhood that a lot of people don't know about. You know, it feels a bit like I have family in Portland, Maine. It feels a bit like Portland, Maine does, or any, you know, the waterfront in Boston. You know, it's really charming down there. You kind of get
It was awesome. I helped one of my best friends, and it was like my third deal, and it was done in the seaport. Awesome. Awesome.
I would say one other thing is that obviously, if you work in Lower Manhattan, you know, you can obviously walk to work. So that's like, you know, that's a really big positive of that location. And actually, since they redid the seaport, it's pretty, you know, I think it's a really cool place. I mean, I grew up in New York, and I remember when they opened the first seaport. So, you know, it was, when I grew up, it was an active fish market. So, you know, it's interesting how much change, you know, you get to witness in so many ways in all over the city. And that's what, you know, I mean, yesterday was very sad news that Broadway won't open until 2021 on a whole variety of levels for the people that work there and so much of what makes New York great. But, you know, I feel like we're a very resilient place, and, you know, we will come through this well, and that, you know, a neighborhood like this has, you know, has a lot of advantages in a whole variety of ways. So, are there any other comments people want to make before we start making dinner and doing other things this evening?
I thought it was great. Shep?
Yes.
It was terrific. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, you were both great. Thank you both.
A little tidbit before we go.
Okay.
You have an accepted offer on the apartment, and so we will be hopefully have a project for you. We're going to strongly recommend that they work with you.
Well, we'd be happy to do it.
That's one. So let me just remind people before we leave to join us Sunday morning at 10 with three great lawyers, Rashida Siddiqui, Chris Mao, and Susan Groberg, to talk about sort of, you know, a few things now you have to be more aware of during living through COVID, though obviously we're grateful that our numbers are way, way down. So again, thank you all for participating. Have a great night, everyone, and we'll see you on Sunday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
For the day.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott. Good. Paul?
Yeah. So,
Stuff, man. Thank you.